Yeah. 93, 93, 93. We up in this motherfucker once again. Doing the Witches Hour, West Coast time. East Coast time is about... What time is it? East Coast time. It's about 6:40. East Coast. But over here in the West, we still dealing with the witches right now. So what I'm gonna do, of course, I'm gonna play my own song. I'm gonna play my Deja Vu, and we'll get straight into it. I'm gonna try not to talk any louder than this, as I don't think it would be too necessary. So I'm gonna try to keep it in the ASMR format, just be as relaxing as possible, see what happens. Alright, about to play this and we'll get straight to it, alright.
You know my city atomic, we radiate them comets. Make the lyrics go supersonic, shift to the earth, call it plate tectonics. Whoa, beat so astronomic, yo, trying to grow hydroponic, though. Trans, call it nirvanic dose, griffin and serpent type phonic coast. Deja vu, watch as I cast his juju. King of the heavens, call me Anu. Started with the demons like Rahu. Spear to the left, Ishu. Journey to the planet Nibiru. That conjure man, hoodoo. Clone nigga too like Mewtwo. Deja vu, watch as I cast his juju. King of the heavens, call me Anu. Started with the demons like Rahu. Spear to the left, Ishu. Journey to the planet Nibiru. That conjure man, hoodoo. Clone nigga too like Mewtwo. The bar wound from the tomb. All this darkness I consume. Interference can call on Zoom. Design the mind, I am Canoom. Working them scales, holy as hell. I repel, psychic spells. Ringing them bells, throwing them shells. It's clipophic where I dwell. The bar wound from the tomb. All this darkness I consume. Interference can call on Zoom. Design the mind, I am Canoom. Working them scales, holy as hell. I repel, psychic spells. Ringing them bells, throwing them shells. It's clipophic where I dwell. Wearing that ring of the genie, surrounded in cloaks you can't see thee. That 93, my philosophy. Them in the stars of geography. I'm invoking them sacred names. Level my mental, reversing planes. Infamous, fuck all that clout and fame. The Kiyama, I set the whole world aflame. Captain soul, I transcend with my energy. Noah's Ark and I speak metaphysically. Underworld, you know who that ruler be. Hello Cyrus, I resurrect sexually. Others listen, the chosen receive it. That's because their true soul is vampiric. Way before Vedic, Dravidic. Look at that, that's a satiric. Pray to holy creams like the Sufis. Grab the pin, I'm scribing on loose sleeves. As I chief, I advance in the far deep. Call the spirits that rose from the concrete. Christ heard it through like a Gnostic. Lay my true eyes on the prophets. Don't separate, we composite. A.A.R of the Gothics. The demisphere, I illuminate. That scholarship, I sophisticate. I step foot towards the middle gate. I alternate between conscious states. Found victory while in the Zack. Couple magic swords, put some druid hats. That holy cat with the candle wax. The myth, the bat, hidden in our rap. The bar wound from the tomb. All this darkness I consume. Interference can call on Zoom. Design the mind, I am Canoom. Working them scales, holy as hell. I repel, psychic spells. Ringing them bells, throwing them shells. It's clipophic where I dwell. Deja vu, watch as I cast his juju. King of the heavens, call me Anu. Started with the demons like Rahu. Spear to the left, Ishu. Journey to the planet Nibiru. That conjure man, hoodoo. Clone nigga too like Mewtwo.
Alright, I'm gonna play that again, as I'm still rolling up. I'm gonna channel for you guys. I'm gonna make it worth your while. So I'm gonna give you some tunes to listen to in the meantime, okay? I'll slow it down though. Let me alter the sound. I'll play it again. Then we'll hit the channel up and go from there. Alright? Alright.
type phonic coast. Deja vu, watch as I cast his juju. King of the heavens, call me Anu. Started with the demons like Rahu. Spirit of the left, Ishu. Journey to the planet Nibiru. That conjure man, hoodoo. Clone nigga two like Mewtwo. Deja vu, watch as I cast his juju. King of the heavens, call me Anu. Started with the demons like Rahu. Spirit of the left, Ishu. Journey to the planet Nibiru. That conjure man, hoodoo. Clone nigga two like Mewtwo. The bar wound from the tomb. All this darkness I consume. Interference can call on Zoom. Design the mind I impugn. Working them scales, holy as hell. I repel psychic spells. Ringing them bells, throwing them shells. It's clipophic where I dwell. The bar wound from the tomb. All this darkness I consume. Interference can call on Zoom. Design the mind I impugn. Working them scales, holy as hell. I repel psychic spells. Ringing them bells, throwing them shells. It's clipophic where I dwell. Wearing that ring of the genie. Surrounded in cloaks you can't see thee. That 93, my philosophy. Them inner stars of geography. I'm invoking them sacred names. Level my mental reversing planes. Infamous, fuck all that clout and fame. The Kiyama, I set the whole world aflame. Captain Soul, I transcend with my energy. Noah's Ark and I speak metaphysically. Underworld, you know who that ruler be. Hello Cyrus, I resurrect sexually. Others listen, the chosen receive it. That's because their true soul is vampiric. Way before Vedic, Dravidic. Look at that, that's a satiric. Pray the holy queens like the Sufis. Grab the pen, I'm scribing on loose sleeves. As I chief, I invest in the far deep. Call the spirits that rose from the concrete. Christ 32 like a Gnostic. Lay my true eyes on the prophets. Don't separate, we composite. Aeon of the Gothics. The demisphere, I illuminate. That scholarship, I sophisticate. I step foot towards the middle gate. I alternate between conscious states. Found victory while in the Zack. Couple magic swords, put some druid hats. That holy cat with the candle wax. The method back, hidden in our rap. The bar wound from the tomb. All this darkness I consume. Interference can call on Zoom. Design the mind I impugn. Working them scales, holy as hell. I repel psychic spells. Ringing them bells, throwing them shells. It's clipophic where I dwell. Deja vu, watch as I cast his juju. King of the heavens, call me Anu. Started with the demons like Rahu. Spirit of the left, Ishu. Journey to the planet Nibiru. That conjure man, hoodoo. Clone nigga two like Mewtwo.
Now I'm gonna play it faster while I bring in the spirit. So here we go. Just enjoy yourself.
You know my city atomic, we radiate them comets. Make the lyrics go supersonic. Shift to the earth, call it plate tectonics. Whoa, beat so astronomic, yo. Chronic grow hydroponic, though. Trance, call it nirvanic dose. Griffin and serpent type phonic coast. Deja vu, watch as I cast his juju. King of the heavens, call me Anu. Started with the demons like Rahu. Spirit of the left, Ishu. issues. Journey to the planet Nibiru. That conjure man, the hoodoo. Clone nigga too like Mewtwo. Deja vu. Watch as I cast his juju. King of the heavens call me Anu. Started with the demons like Rahu. Spear to the left, issues. Journey to the planet Nibiru. That conjure man, the hoodoo. Clone nigga too like Mewtwo. The bar wound from the tomb. All this darkness I consume. Interference can call on Zoom. Design of mine, I am canoe. Working them scales, holy as hell. I repel, psychic spells. Ringing them bells, throwing them shells. It's perfect where I dwell. The bar wound from the tomb. All this darkness I consume. Interference can call on Zoom. Design of mine, I am canoe. Working them scales, holy as hell. I repel, psychic spells. Ringing them bells, throwing them shells. It's perfect where I dwell. Wearing that ring of the genie, surrounded in cloaks you can't see thee. That 93, my philosophy, them in the stars of geography. I'm invoking them sacred names, level my mental reversing planes. Infamous, fuck all that clout and fame. The Kiyama, I set the whole world aflame. Captive soul, now transcend with my energy. Noah's Ark and I speak metaphysically. Underworld, you know who that ruler be. Hello Cyrus, I resurrect sexually. Others listen, the chosen receive it. That's because their true soul is vampiric. Way before Vedic, Dravidic. Look at that, that's a satiric. Pray to holy creams like the Sufis. Grab the pen, I'm scribing on loose sleeves. As I chief, I advance in the far deep. Call the spirits that rose from the concrete. Christ heard it through like a Gnostic. Lay my true eyes on the prophets. Don't separate, we composite. A.A.R of the Gothics. The demisphere, I illuminate. That scholarship, I sophisticate. I step foot towards the middle gate. I alternate between conscious state. Found victory while in the Zack. Couple magic swords, plus some druid hats. That holy cat with the candle wax. The myth, the back, hidden in our rap. The bar wound from the tomb. All this darkness I consume. Interference can call on Zoom. Design of mine, I am canoe. Working them scales, holy as hell. I repel, psychic spells. Ringing them bells, throwing them shells. It's perfect where I dwell. Deja vu. Watch as I cast his juju. King of the heavens call me Anu. Started with the demons like Rahu. Spear to the left, issues. Journey to the planet Nibiru. That conjure man, the hoodoo. Clone nigga too like Mewtwo.
Alright, the spirit calls for me to actually look into the camera instead of looking at the screen or the iPad, so yeah, cast, no, it says, let me, wait a minute, what's up Callie, what's up Mary, what's up Gigi, what's up back from hiatus, let me clear up the lyrics for you. I'll clear up the lyrics for you. It does not say casting psychic spells like Mewtwo, even though that is a good line. But let me clarify what I said. Let me clear it so that there is no confusion. Yeah, I can put that out. Yeah, I'm good on that for now. I'm not even sure what the fuck it says, cause I'm not even in that. Let me just focus on what I'm doing. Cause I'm like, I gotta think about the lyrics. Okay, there we go. I'll focus on this for now. We are upon the 30th degree. What I mean by the 30th degree, of course, November 30th. The last day of November, the 11th month of the Master Seer. So this month, now that we are on the 30th degree, now we can properly reflect upon what has occurred this month. And through that reflection, we can see where the truth lies as to how these mathematics activate in our lives on a personal level. So because we are approaching the end of the Master Seer, which made us very intuitive and very sensitive. So if we reflect back on the month of November, we can see that we were extra intuitive, even extra sensitive. It all depends on who and what you are. So some people felt sensitivity. Some people were more intuitive. Some people were more, wanted to be in solitude. All of these correspond to the energies of the moon, the high priestess. The reason why the high priestess is also called the temple woman is because the temple woman is mostly in isolation. What do I mean by that? Because as we know, when we are mastering and perfecting our spiritual path, it requires isolation, because who could tell you how to master your own system but you? So that takes isolation, that takes solitude, because it can't necessarily be asked by anyone else. Right? That is the internal work that we have to put in, that we call shadow work. We put in the necessary shadow work in order to understand what is uniquely ours and what has came from outside of our influence. Let me give you a better definition of what I mean by this. We can think we are who we are, but it is only a dimension of our personality that we acquired based upon our environment, aka the first house. Our first house represents how we interact with our environment. Maybe I should keep my hands still, because I see me doing all this hand movement is altering the light. So let me keep my hands stilled, and maybe that'll cause less alteration. The first house represents how we interact with our environment. In other words, how we respond to our environment. So how we respond to our environment isn't necessarily just learned behavior. It also is determined upon what the first house cusp is, or what zodiac sign falls upon the first house. That gives you the perspective of how you deal with it, not necessarily what you do. Now, of course, you can acquire those answers the deeper you go, but if we're just glancing upon the surface, it's not necessarily what you do, but why you do. It answers the why, not the what, not the process necessarily. Again, we will have to go into the deeper chambers. So if we reflect upon what is uniquely ours, what have we acquired from the shadows, which is why we're here in a dark place called planet Earth. We are here to acquire what is found in the shadows. That's why they make the illusions so good. The illusions is so good because we think that everything is already figured out. We're not necessarily running towards the shadows, because everyone wants to be seen. Everybody wants to be heard, so on and so forth. So essentially people are trying to navigate where they can be seen. It's not too many people who are essentially running towards the shadows, if you get what I mean. But it is in the shadows that you discover your uniqueness, because the outer perspective cannot tell you your uniqueness, as they already have patterns laid out. What do I mean? Images. The images have already been laid out. The archetypes of the images have already been laid out. So essentially we can fit into whatever mode that already exists. And this is what many of us do. because we can. If you have that ability, definitely utilize it. So I am not discouraging this, but this is what occurs nonetheless. We are more easily led to fit into molds that already exist than to forge our own unique mold that is different than anything else. That second option seems, a little more intimidating because, again, it doesn't come with all of the perks that most people are looking for when it comes to the human experience. But let's speak on the soul. Let's speak as the Gnostic, as the Sufi, as the Kabbalist. If we look at it from these perspectives, let me actually turn this background music back on. There we go. If we look at it from these perspectives of the Gnostic or the Kabbalist or the Sufi, just a little bit. There we go. We understand that the whole purpose of any of those spiritual systems is to activate the shadows, right? Anything so-called spiritual, you have to dig into the shadows. And what are the shadows? Oh, that's right. That's what we will call our 12th house. So we dealt with the first house of image and how we respond to our environment. Now let's dig into the mysteries of the 12th house, the shadows, the darkness, right? When we do this, instead of focusing on image, now we're focusing, or the ego. Let's make it even more easier to comprehend. If the first house will represent image and ego, then of course the second house would then have to represent the alter ego, which, as we know, is our unfiltered self. We know that the ego is a creation. Our ego is basically how we are able to operate in the world based on the world's rules and regulations. So let's just say the world's rules and regulations didn't apply all of a sudden. What would happen? If all of the things that are considered laws and regulations and rules, all of us, if you woke up tomorrow, or today rather, and none of these things applied, your ego would shatter. The first thing that would happen to most people is they would have a ego death. It would be hard to process, let alone what are they going to actually do about it. Before that they even get to that point, they will have a mental collapse, or the ego death as we call it, because the ego would no longer apply. So the ego doesn't know what to do. Because, okay, well, my whole creation is based upon these rules, laws, and regulations that have been set before us. So if those things no longer apply, the ego no longer has anything to attach itself to. And if the ego no longer has anything to attach itself to, then it is forced to change, which causes it to collapse. Collapse into what? Now we begin to descend into the 12th house of the alter ego, which is always in existence. We just tend to not like it when it manifests its forces. Most people don't like nightmares or karma, divination, all of the darker Anubis activity in the tomb. As we should know, that tomb work is not really that exciting, or most people are not looking forward to tomb work, right? However, we understand that that tomb is a symbol of something other than death, physical death. When most people look at a tomb, they are thinking about the physical death. But of course, we know our ancestors made sure to leave messages and signals and symbolic references in those tombs. All types of keys and codes, mathematical equations that manipulate your consciousness in ways that, of course, we don't know of now, but that are hidden within the 12th house. Meaning you can say all of our ancient knowledge or futuristic knowledge, whether you're going back or forward, it exists within the alter ego, who is you without a filter. So again, as I said in the example, if none of the rules suddenly applied, most people will have a mental collapse. But once they get over this mental collapse, then they begin to process, okay, well, what am I going to do about it? Once we get to that point of what are we going to do about it, now this is us thinking from the alter ego, because now the alter ego has to take over again, as the ego no longer serves a purpose and has undergone a death of that particular mind state. So as the alter ego enters into the consciousness, you begin to contemplate on what's possible. Not just what's possible, but how to accomplish what's possible in a way that hasn't been done before. Because again, you can say the paths of success have already been carved, some in some form or fashion, right? People look towards other people to see what they would like to do in their journey, right? This is why we call these types of people influencers. This is the modern day term, right? That's the whole purpose that a influencer serves, as a archetype or image or light that people can look towards, people can strive to be like. So this is the purpose of the influencers. As we descend into the shadows once again, what type of influence does the alter ego feel? Or, because we know gray matter is only stimulated through certain stimuli, so I'm going to tie that into the equation of this tomb work is what stimulates the gray matter, because now you must rely on your own creativity in a way that only you can perform. See, this is not how Western civilization is structured. What I'm speaking about right now, again, as I said, most paths of success have already been carved out. Engineers, mathematicians, you pretty much have an option of what you want to do with your life. The path is already there. Hence, Western civilization. There's not many of us that create paths that didn't exist before, to the point where a new word has to be invented in order to define what is being done, because no previous word explains it. When we look at these things, like, oh yeah, that's extraordinary, and that's exactly what we need to be in the realm of the extraordinary. Because this is what happens when we enter into the realm of the extraordinary. And And we made the decision to forge paths that did not exist previously. Do things that have not been previously done. We can see this is how the ancients thought because we have all the evidence to prove it. That's why we have so many different civilizations all over this planet, and they are all unique. They have a similar code. They have similar patterns, but they are all unique. No other culture in the ancient world looked like the other. All of the cultures had a unique energy signature, physically and spiritually. So all of the ancient civilizations resembled themselves, and that was their goal. Their goal was to manifest something on the planet that had not been there prior. This is also why we have so many different types of languages. All of these languages come from people seeking to be unique and having control over their own destiny. So if all of these civilizations were formed from the shadows, and we understand nowadays in modern times, now we call it shadow work, aka tomb work. We understand the purpose that the tomb serves. The purpose of the tomb is it is a perfect vehicle for shadow work. This is why they say sleep is a cousin of death, because in sleep we enter into the tomb. We enter into the land of the dead. And I say the land of the dead because we are capable of seeing dead people there when we sleep. Sleep is cousin to death because sleep is where we meet and interact and communicate with the dead. That becomes possible when we sleep. Now, of course, it can be further developed, but it starts in sleep when we dream. So we probably have dreams about dead people daily. It's just that most people don't remember their dreams, so they probably wouldn't understand that. But if we were to be realistic, every night or every day, depending on when you rest, we dream about the dead, and they interact with us. They communicate with us as if they're alive. And you see, we have absolutely no problem with it. The dream don't stop because we see someone who's no longer here. Because we are in a state of DMT. That DMT is being secreted from the pineal gland. So to us, there is no difference. That's why certain dreams don't throw us off, irregardless of how strange or weird they seem, is because we are basically on drugs when we dream. The DMT experience, is the most powerful experience. So that's why sleep is essentially the most powerful drug or the most powerful experience we can have. Right? Because the only thing that's going to get you to that state is drugs. And we understand, again, it's all the same thing. Drugs put you in a sleep-like or coma-like or death state. So essentially, we become the dead. Every night or every day, we are among the dead. It's like a bunch of coffins. Are we starting to see where we're going with this? It's like a bunch of coffins at any given point of the day. Imagine how many people are asleep, how many people are dead, are in their coffin, in their tomb, journeying, interacting with the dead at any given moment. This is why the death currency is constantly flowing, because people are constantly asleep. So they're giving their energy to the spirit world constantly. And again, this energy does not slow down. There is a continuous flow, because when you're in that state, we know that you're not doing anything physically. Your body is actually secreting chemicals, and that's why we don't sleepwalk. Now, of course, some people do sleepwalk, but of course, we know we're not supposed to, because the body secretes chemicals to prevent that. So I guess for people who do sleepwalk, the body is not secreting the chemical that essentially paralyzes your body, which is why sleep paralysis is a thing. You know, people go all over the place with this sleep paralysis, but it's this chemistry of the body secretes chemicals that essentially paralyzes the body. So if you are to regain consciousness suddenly for whatever reason, and then you feel yourself you can't move, like you're trapped in a coffin, kind of like you're trapped in a tomb, kind of. Anyway, all this is because of the chemicals. Now that's the physical. Now, of course, we understand that the astral body has to come back into the body, or the spirit has to come back into the body, and then the body can animate itself. Essentially, if the spirit is not present in the body, then the body cannot animate. The body is purely animated by spirit. See, we see these truths, but we don't comprehend them. See, we see them. Most people see them, and that's why most people are knowledgeable, because all you have to do to gain knowledge is observe. So people have done a lot of observing in their lives, so we get knowledge strictly off of observation alone. So that's no problem. But then we must contemplate on the why. And that's when we get to the understanding, when we start to ponder on, okay, if the spirit world and the material world is connected, and we know it's connected because we go there every fucking day or night. We're going there. There is no way to say, like, the spirit ain't just hovering above your body, just cooling. Well, I guess that's one theory, at least. I just pointed out a theory. So some believe that essentially the astral body just kind of floats a little bit above the physical body when you dream. Again, it all depends on where you're getting your source information, because different people have different ways of explaining these phenomenons. So we are entering into the land of the dead daily or nightly. We are engaging with Anubis or A.A.R, Anpu or A.A.R daily. And we are coming back from the dead, resurrected from death daily. This is a daily experience. We don't look at it as such, but this is what's actually occurring. Again, just strictly through observation, we can tell things are a lot deeper than they appear. Let me give you an example. Sometimes we dream, and sometimes we astral travel. And we tend to remember those experiences because they have a profound effect on us. So the dreams that had a profound effect on you most of the time, those were astral projections, because they are so solidified in your consciousness and they affect you on a supreme level that that's not something that's trivial to you. See, dreams essentially you could say are trivial because they're just unplayed out desires and, things that you didn't do here in the light, you accomplish in the shadows. So the things that we don't do, because remember, the consciousness or the brain does not sleep. So the brain is on a 24-hour cycle. So this is why we dream in the first place, because the body is still active. Your consciousness is still active. The consciousness never sleeps. Even if we are not aware of the intelligence being processed. but consciousness never sleeps. So consciousness is forever processing information. So because consciousness is forever processing information, it is up to us, whether we want to incorporate that information or not. Essentially, it's up to us whether we want to remember our dreams or not. That's a personal choice. But again, when it comes to a astral experience, it tends to have a profound effect on us. Once again, we may interact with the dead. That may have a profound effect on someone. Seeing someone that you haven't seen in a long time, and they're alive and well in the shadow form, in the shadow realm, and they tell you something profound or just embrace you in a way that just fills you with emotion. Those types of experiences will bleed out into the light or bleed out into the material plane and affect your daily activities, aka your image, your first house. So what occurs in your 12th house affects the first house. It seeps into the first house just through the unconscious. So once again, every night we visit the dead. We interact with the dead. They are influencing us, because I spoke about influencers in the light. These are the influencers of the dark. These are the influencers in the shadows, because they can manipulate the shadow. They can manipulate the dark matter and the dark energy and manifest. When you visit the land of the dead, those forces can manifest, because that is the components in which death operates out of. Death operates out of the dark energy and the dark matter. Take a breath. Oh, sorry. All right. As I explained earlier, where people are constantly sleeping irregardless of what time of the day it is, whether day or night, someone is asleep somewhere. So that energy is being processed through what is called death, because sleep and death is of the same origin, as I just explained. That same dark energy and dark matter that interacts with the gray matter in the brain. So essentially, in order for anything spiritual to occur, the gray matter must be stimulated by the dark matter or the dark energy, aka the shadows, aka the reaper that we call death. Angel of death is Raphael, so on and so forth, right? You have to, or as they call it, the kiss of death. That's where that term comes from, kiss of death, right? So someone is constantly kissing death, having an intimate experience with death at any given point of the day. From this perspective, there is nothing to fear about death, because we are essentially interacting with it daily. We just don't see it as such, because we split everything into dualism. As we know, this is just the way the brain works. It splits everything into dualism and filters out the information that it considers relevant versus the information it doesn't consider relevant. That's the only difference between the conscious, the subconscious, and the unconscious, is the level of filtration that the brain undergoes. So when we are conscious, the brain is filtering out a lot of, you could say, subconscious and unconscious information that's always occurring, but we're just not aware of it. We have to train our brain to become aware of the subconscious and the unconscious while we are conscious. Hence, this is the purpose of spirituality. You are becoming more aware of those lunar currents that are forever at play. They are just invisible because they are illuminated by the light. Once that sun comes up, certain energies become invisible. It's as if they're not there. You couldn't say dark matter and dark energy. Like, where's the dark matter and dark energy? Once the sun comes up, it's like the sun, the light dissolves the dark. This is what we see with our eyes. But it's not that the dark disappears necessarily. You could say the frequency rises, sure, but that energy still exists. We're just limited in what we can see. Again, we can only see from ultra red to ultraviolet, right? Infrared, I don't know why I say ultra red. It's infrared and ultraviolet. There we go. We're limited to infrared, ultraviolet. But things occur outside of that, hence the subconscious, the unconscious. Both of those are outside of those dimensions. Why? Because our eyes must be shut most of the time to interact with them. Hence, we have to be interacting with the deaf currency most of the time to even know what is occurring in our own unconscious mind. Which is why we sleep, meaning we dream just to see what is occurring in our own unconscious. We're just giving it some awareness. Well, this is the true purpose of dream, is to observe your own unconscious, which again will give you insight once you're able to crack the codes and you learn the language of the subconscious. Because remember, the subconscious has its own language or its own symbolism. So essentially, those who document their dreams, they know this to be true, where there may be a certain place you dream about more than other places. Certain people you see more than other people. There's just certain patterns that you pick up on the more that you record. The more that you record, the more you realize that, oh, this is a language. And then you begin to document your own codex. See, it starts off as just recording dreams, but it ends up becoming, you are decoding your own subconscious language. So you must create a codex of symbolisms, of phrases, of, again, you say what causes you to respond in the way you do. So let's just say you were dreaming and you saw a certain person and that person made you cry. You want to know why that person made you cry. Why does that person make you happy? Why does seeing certain imagery trigger certain emotions, aka of the subconscious? Because the subconscious is all about the emotions. So while we dream, you just start to discover why certain symbolism in certain figures affects you in certain ways. So you begin to build up that codex. So when we bring this to Magick works the same way essentially. We simply are utilizing deities and spirits and symbols and all that to study and observe the effect it has on our subconscious, because the subconscious is a medium between the conscious and unconscious. So the middle ground, or the gray path of it all, becomes the subconscious mind. Because once you build that codex, you see it doesn't just apply to the dreams anymore. Now it applies to Magick, because you're going through the same process. What does these symbols do to the subconscious? Not what it does to your conscious mind. See, that this is where most people get stuck when it comes to Magick. They're still trying to look up definitions and phrases and all these things. What do I mean? So let's just say a person wanted to work with, let's just say the 72 Goetia, right? 72 Goetia, or you can say the 72 angels. We just make it even, right? What most people would do is they will look at the definitions of what this angel or this demon does, right? So they would then pick their option based upon a definition, right? And because they would base their option on a definition, aka they are approaching magic with their conscious mind. This is why most people don't get the results that they're looking for, because they are not accessing or operating from the subconscious. There's no way you can be utilizing your subconscious mind looking at definitions and picking which one you like based on a definition. And we already know this is what most people do. It's all about definitions. It's all about what they like, whatever, based on the definition. Rarely do people pick what they like based strictly off of imagery or feel or vibe. Now, of course, we know that there are people, the master, the master seers. There we go. See, these words are escaping me. We know that this is essentially the ability that the master seer has. They are always in tune with their subconscious, whether they like it or not. Just strictly operating from the 11. Now, taking it a step further, since the subconscious is the medium between that dream work and also that magic work, and we understand, like, okay, it must be approached from the subconscious. This will save you countless years. It ain't about hours, minutes, days. This will save you countless years of trying to study all of these things, all of these concepts, and maybe you get it, maybe you don't. When we simply choose based on reaction and stimulation to the subconscious, which you cannot do, essentially trying to approach it like a scientific experiment. Let me give you an example. If you wanted to study crickets, you would probably go to where crickets are and observe them and take notes and do experiments and see how they will respond in this type of environment, in this type of stimulation, in this type of predator, this type of prey. What happens here? What happens there? So this is essentially what science is all about. They're doing, just putting these insects under various temperaments and seeing how they respond. This is how most people approach magic, like a science experiment, utilizing logic and reason. But if magic was about logic and reason, it would be no different than anything else. Magic would not be so mysterious if it was so logical and scientific. Because essentially everything else is, or the past that have already been forged, is all about mathematics and science. So if magic was about mathematics and science like everything else, then it will be accepted like everything else. But magic, of course, is not accepted like everything else because it doesn't work like that. This is why we cannot get the same results, because different things affect different people differently. Different things affect different people differently. I gotta say different 3 times because that's just how complex it is. You're not going to get the same reaction from people. For example, you show Baphomet to 10 people, you may get 10 different reactions. You show Jesus to 10 people, you're going to get 10 different reactions, right? Everybody is not going to respond in the same way. you're going to have a variety of responses. There is no standard response. So if we approach magic with a standard response, that it's a one size fits all, like this is how everybody is supposed to feel about something, this is just simply not the case. This is what makes magic so mysterious and different, because of the variety of responses it can invoke within the consciousness. Depending on who you are and how open you are to certain symbolism, is going to affect you either positive or negative. And again, I don't even want to slim it down to just two ways, because there's, of course, there's a variety. So just like the 9 levels of heaven, 9 levels of hell, you can say you got up to 9 different responses. We'll just keep it simple. So you're going to at least get 1 out of 9 responses. And there is no telling how long it's going to take you to develop a pattern, because of the variety of experiences. So if the foundation and the core of magic is about a unique experience, the only way to advance our uniqueness is through the shadows. Why? Once again, the shadows becomes our playground, because we can expose ourselves to more unique symbolism that's not available in this plane. You may see something in your dream that you've never seen here before, to the point where it makes you respond to a point where you wake up and you want to copy this symbol, like a symbol you never seen before, but you know, like, this had a profound effect on you, and you can actually remember it. Then you write it down, or draw it rather, as soon as you wake up. The material plane couldn't have did that for you. Now we can do it if we're approaching it like a scientist, or we're trying to find symbols in a book. But again, even if we approach it that way, we must utilize the subconscious. How does my subconscious respond to said stimulation? Which is going to be different for the next person, and the next person, and the next person, and the next person. So essentially, the only thing you have to go off of is your own unique individual response. So once you build up your codex, once again, because you are no longer limited to the material plane. See, this is the purpose of why the dreams are important. Because again, we can only do so much in the material plane. Everybody has their time invested in many different things. So it's only so much we can do here. You may not have time to just, go catch flights to Egypt and China, Brazil, and look at all of the ancient monuments and see how they make you interact. You may not have the time or the resources to do all these things that you actually would have to do to see how you respond, because everything isn't in books. As we know, some things you just got to see. You got to be before it and to see how it affects you, right? So, for all this time we don't have in the physical plane, this is what makes dreams so relevant, because you can do it there and take it actually beyond that, beyond what you think you know or where you should be. You can actually expose yourself to new territory, new ideas, and new symbolism that's just not available here. Again, creating a unique path, having a unique experience which will result in a unique path, a unique result. The ending will be a unique result that had not happened before, because again, your response is based upon you. It isn't based upon anything outside of you. So once we understand this is the purpose of tomb work, this is why we honor the shadows or honor the dead, interact and communicate with the dead daily. See, our spirit understands these concepts. That's why we're putting in the work, whether we're conscious of it or not. Because once you have programmed your mind and your consciousness to be spiritual, then work is being put in irregardless of whether you're conscious of it or not. it just greatly benefits you when you are conscious of it, because you can expand it, you can make it more advanced than when it is in autopilot, right? Autopilot is decent. It'll get you through the night, it'll get you through the day. But when we have it on manual, now we can jailbreak it, now we can root it, now we can crack it. Now we can do all these advanced things that we just simply couldn't do. Because when your program is just running on autopilot, it's just going to repeat things that it already knows. It's not going to generate a new experience necessarily. And if it is a new experience, it's going to still be based on past experience, just reassembled and reconfigured differently. But when you're on manual, you can concoct a brand new stimulation that is not like anything else, which is why we have creativity. So my whole purpose of saying this is, we tend to get lost looking outside of ourselves as if our path is already out there. I'm supposed to be an influencer. I'm supposed to be this. I'm supposed to be that. Like the title already exists. It doesn't. It doesn't already exist. It has to be created. Us walking in the path of our destiny requires us to do something unique. Something that requires a new word. So that should be our focus. What is a word that doesn't exist, that I'm going to bring to the world? Because it all starts with a word, right? We know once we write the thing down, we give it life, we give it consciousness. So what is it that we are giving consciousness? What word are we forging for this world to interact with and to influence the consciousness of others based upon what that intention is? And if that intent is what the world needs, it's going to respond accordingly. All right. So I'm going to stop it right there. Hopefully this was useful to someone. And I'll get it y'all very soon. 93.